Hey, Deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Colt and Larissa. Let's get to the show.
When we finish the Halloween, for me, the slot machine will be in the garage.
Well, that's another discussion. If you want to have that discussion, we can, but...
Go stop to protect your mother stuff like we are hurting her.
I'm not.
She's territorialist, she don't care. She never touched the slot machine just because I touched. Oh, wait. Larissa touched. She hurt me. Come on, you should stay my side.
There's nothing wrong with having feelings and wanting to move the slot machine. There's nothing wrong with wanting the mom to move out. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you're not being heard when you're communicating to your husband about what your preferences are. There is something not helpful about sarcasm. When you are sarcastic, it's almost universally not going to be received well. You are in your rights to talk about your feelings and be heard. To be sarcastic is to amp up your feelings, is to ridicule someone. All of us have done it. I've done it. Everyone does it. When they're overwhelmed, triggered, flooded, we will resort to all sorts of things that we wouldn't normally do because we're vulnerable, we're hurt, we don't know how to act in those moments. We become undifferentiated. So what I'm guessing for Larissa right now is she feels unheard, she is flooded, she doesn't know what to do, she doesn't feel like she's being understood, and she's resorting to sarcasm as a way of trying to emphasize her feelings. Let's rewatch that again.
She's territorialist, she don't care. She never touched the slot machine just because I touched. Oh, wait. Larissa touched. She hurt me. Come on, you should stay my side. I feel upset because Colt doesn't stay neutral. He stayed Deb's side.
All right, as usual, when they're being interviewed away from the conflict and away from the other people, when they're by themselves, they're much more differentiated. She's able to say, I'm upset because my husband takes the mom's side and not my side. I wouldn't mind if he was neutral, but he always takes mom's side, which is upsetting to me. Okay, that is perfectly natural to feel and express. You should be heard for that.
You act like I should support you and do all these things. This is a house we share with 3 people.
But you should to be the mediator. She's right, you are right.
I can't be
Period. But you are a pussy.
All right, so she just called him a name, which is also something that we don't want to do in an argument. This has been my hypothesis for a while now, is that I think Larissa, so it's very common when you're in a relationship that you want contact with that person. I don't really have a better metaphor other than that. You want the person to be alive. You want to love someone who is active. When someone is not very active, when they're very passive, or they defer to other people, or they are invisible, as you love them, you kind of lose them. I hope that makes sense. And I think that for Larissa, that's what she's experiencing with Colt, is she's trying to have contact with him. She's trying to love him, and he just kind of disappears into passivity. And it can be very upsetting because it feels very, you feel very alone, and it's almost kind of like a rejection. You feel like the person doesn't love you enough to be alive and to take up space in the room and to be involved. And what some people will resort to, I think probably because they don't really know how to articulate what's happening, that they're feeling hurt because they feel rejected, and then they transform that hurt into anger, is they will call the other person names, they will provoke the other person, they will start conflicts in an attempt to get contact from the other person. They're hoping that the other person will get angry and stand up and be in the room. And this, runs across all gender lines. It's not just women to men. And in this instance, she's calling him I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but the P word. In my experience, when I've seen that before, it's because she baseline, fundamentally, she's hurt because he is, one, not supporting her, two, not mediating, not getting involved in the conflicts between Larissa and Debbie, and three, not being a presence in the relationship to meet her, to be alive and to have preferences, to have emotion, to be vulnerable, to say stuff. As an analogy, let's say that you're walking down the road and you get mugged and you see a police officer down the street. You run up to the police officer, you're like, and you're really upset. You're like, this mugger just took my wallet and, at gunpoint, and they look like this and they're running down the road. And the police officer says, okay, huh? What's going on? Could you slow down, please? And there's something upsetting about that attitude from someone where you're like, wait, what's happening right now? Do you not understand that something big is, I just told you, you're a police officer. Like, shouldn't you be like at least intensely interested in what I'm telling you? Shouldn't you be running down the street? Shouldn't you be calling like, why are you so dead right now? Even though the police officer might think, I'm trying to calm this person down. I'm trying to assess the situation, to follow the best protocol. I need to not lose my crap. I need to take this slow. If I just run off into the darkness, that's not going to do anyone any good. So maybe the police officer is coming from a logical place, but there's a mismatch in communication, and it can be very upsetting. In the same way, when you go to your spouse and something is happening and you're like, something is wrong here, and they seem to be above it all and aloof and giving this kind of superior attitude, and this face definitely depicts that, I think. I've worked with a lot of people who will have superior attitudes, shall we say, and I've always found that underneath that is a vast sea of insecurity and worthlessness, and there's this very thin veil of superiority and better than attitude that they are trying to convince themselves to, one, cover it up for themselves, but also to cover it up to other people because they don't want to be seen for who they are, because then that will confirm their deepest nightmare. So I don't know about him, but that would be an hypothesis I would follow. But anyway, so I wonder if that's what's going on for Larissa, and I wonder if I was to work with them, I would hear that. Oh, okay. Okay, Colt, what's going on with you? How are you feeling right now? Tell me what's going on. Like, let's get those emotions out. Let's show for Larissa that you're affected by the situation, that this means something to you, and that Larissa and her feelings matter to you, and that being the sort of aloof, superior, calm tone that you have doesn't represent your entire take on it. It's also possible that he believes he has to be very calm and cool to offset her reactivity. And this is causing a feedback loop, is what we call it in systems theory, where the more Larissa reacts, as she escalates, the more he will become very calm in an attempt to offset her. So say, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, and then from 0 to -10 for Colt, where the further down he goes, the more calm he gets. So at 0, you're normal. -10 is super calm. +10 is very active. So let's say that there's something going on, and Larissa goes up to a 2. And then Colt feels like, okay, to offset that, I got to become a -2. Well, all that does for Larissa is like, you're pulling away from me, and it feels like you're acting like this doesn't matter to me. So I better amp it up to a 5. And then Colt's like, oh, I better offset that. I better go to a -7 and become very, very calm. And I'm not going to say anything, because if I say anything, it'll just add to the fire. And then Larissa becomes a 9, and then he becomes a -10, and he calls the police and blah, blah, blah. That is a very common feedback loop that both people are playing a part in inadvertently. They're both trying their best to do right by the relationship and themselves and the other person, but unbeknownst to themselves, they're both creating this vicious circle that is causing the very behavior that they want. The more Colt becomes negative and calm and cool and above it all and aloof, the more angry and more activated Larissa gets. The more active and angry and vocal and loud that Larissa gets, the more calm and the more distant he gets. I don't know. It's just an hypothesis I'd run past them. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm curious about this one because whenever I'm talking about systems theory, I don't know if I'm talking over people's heads. I teach systems theory to clinicians and students and trainees and supervisees, and it takes them a long time to get it. So I always have low expectations of comprehension from people when I'm talking about it. I didn't get systems theory for years, and I taught it. I taught it long before I understood it. But I think that was a small enough example of that. I think maybe it's easily understood. Let me know in the comments. I'm a professor, and I live to have people understand things. And my mission in life, in so much of what I do, is to impart knowledge and wisdom so that people can use that to better their lives. That is a big part of my life. And so you could really realize my mission in life if you could somehow let me know in the comments if that makes sense to you. All right, let's get back to the show.
Because she is used to do it for long years. So Debbie's against me, and she likes to control everything. I will make the shirt, my husband is a pussy.
You should treat me with respect. Don't talk to me like that. I'm your husband.
All right, so she's doubling down on the name calling. And what I'd be looking for from him is to say something around his feelings. I'd say, it hurts my feelings when you call me a name. And I recommend that you all do this regardless of what context you're in. Your kids call you a name. Your boss calls you a name. Some political fight on the line calls you a name. The baseline feeling is usually hurt. And then we transform that into anger, and then we transform that into some form of hidden or overt hostility or rejection, withdrawal, or something. Because when we do that, it gives Larissa and others the opportunity to go, oh, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. That's not why I'm doing this. Why am I calling this person a name? Okay, it gives it a chance to kind of derail that. Instead, what Colt is doing is he frequently does this, is he, again, comes across as aloof and superior and says, you really need to give your husband more respect. I don't know if that's a helpful thing to say in the moment. Most people would agree that, I guess on a base level, you should respect people around you and you should respect your spouses. But that's a funny time to say it in that moment because it sounds like you need to respect me. Well, no, they don't. No one needs to respect anyone. What needs to happen is for people to notice each other's needs and to meet those needs. And when your need to not be hurt is being threatened, then allow someone else to meet that need. It's, oh, well, I don't want to insult, I don't want to hurt you. That wasn't my. So when he comes across as superior, again, I think he's resorting to that because he has a vasty of worthlessness. It's just a guess. He hasn't indicated that, but usually that's the case. And he's trying to cover that by being aloof and above it all and saying that thing. And then, of course, it just provokes her because I don't think they're really talking about the overt words that they're using. The literal thing. I don't think that that's literally what they're talking about. I think what she's talking about is she wants contact. And I also think she's hurt by him not supporting her. And I think she's hurt and frustrated that Debbie hasn't moved out yet, even though all three of them, I believe, last season agreed that Debbie was going to move out. I think she feels like nothing's ever going to happen. No one's ever going to listen to me. And Colt isn't doing any favors to that narrative of hers by saying and having the attitude that he does. But to me, as a couples therapist, when I see these two, all I see are two hurt people that are triggering each other. She's triggering him, he's triggering her, which causes her to trigger him, and back and forth. And they're both good people, and they both have good hearts, and they both are trying their best and hurting each other. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that in my office. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it in the world. And the path forward is going to those fundamental feelings and trusting the other person with those feelings, and then having the other person receive those feelings in an empathic way. And then you're in the good zone. Now, for some of us, it can be very hard for us to do that given our past traumas. I don't know how fast or how long it would take the two of these people to get to that point. I don't know. We did see one session where they went to what they're calling a sex therapist, and they worked on their sexual life. I hope they go back to that clinician. It seemed like it was worthwhile. And what a wonderful thing if they could have like 50 sessions with that person. But I think it was just a gimmick for the show, and they were just doing a one-off thing. But we'll see.
Shut up. You should to get up and be a man. But now, honey, you're right, Mommy. Oh, Mommy, I'm sorry. Mommy, you're right.
I think you're just unhappy and
Of course, Colt. Who you be happy to leave your mother? So you don't understand the eating and you should to be the mediator, Mommy.
I can't mediate.
You can't because you are a pussy. You are afraid.
All right, so we just hear a little bit more, and we see that smug face of his, which I don't think is helping her. I think he thinks it's a lesser expression of his displeasure. I think he would say, well, I at least I'm not saying what I want to say, which would be really destructive. This is the best I can do in that situation. What I would say is, well, maybe there's a third option. Anyway, so she just said a little bit more. She called him the P word again, and then she said, well, let's rewind that because actually it's interesting because I think she kind of turned a corner. I think he might actually be helping kind of by at least remaining calm, because you could kind of sense that she came down the elevator a little bit and was less activated and was trying to reason with him. You could hear a little bit of that reasonableness in her voice. Let's go back and listen.
You should treat me with respect. Don't talk to me like that. I'm your husband.
Shut up. You should to get up and be a man. But
By the way, in my household, when I grew up, shut up was one of the worst things you could possibly say. I'm guessing shut up was uttered, and I grew up with 3 siblings, so there was a lot of, you just get upset at your siblings. And to say shut up was akin to, I don't even know what, like one of the worst swear words you could possibly say. I'm guessing in my household, throughout all of us kids growing up, shut up was said like 6 times. And I could probably remember 2 or 3 times that happened. It was a very, very horrible thing to say. And I think that it was a good message from my parents of not just the phrase shut up is bad to say, because it's just so, you just want to tell your siblings to shut up so many times, And it wasn't just shut up, it was what shut up represented that my parents were very sure to draw a line around of. You don't treat other people like that. You can say how you feel, or you could deal with your own feelings yourself, but to extend into that hostility, to shut people down, is not okay in our household. So it's just interesting because as an adult, when I hear it, it still sounds like a swear word to me to say shut up. And I probably don't say shut up in my regular life. One, I don't run into situations where that would come up, but anyway, I just thought I would react, and so there you go. So let's watch how I think she's starting to come down a little bit, and she reveals a little bit more about, I think, what she's hoping for from him. A common thing that I'm asking couples in conflict is, what's the request? That's usually one of the questions that I'll ask is, okay, Larissa, I'm hearing you say a lot of things. What's the request? So I try to shift the words and their sentences away from the hostility and towards, a request. Well, because that is what people are often doing when they're fighting, is there's a request. There's a very unspoken request of, will you please have contact with me? Will you please not be against me when me and your mom are fighting? Will you please be on my side? Okay. Those are the requests, but they're not stated as requests. They're stated as attacks. And so I'm always listening for what's the request there. And it's a good thing to do when you're in conflict with your spouse or anyone. If you feel like they're just yelling at you and they're being hostile, is try to figure out what the request is in there. And then if you can identify that and give that, so are you saying that you want me to do this? And they'll be like, yeah, I want you to do that. You're like, okay, I hear you. And then you can really derail someone and you can really de-escalate someone in a situation like that. But let's listen here and try to figure out Larissa's request.
No, honey. You're right, Mommy. Oh, Mommy, I'm sorry. Mommy, you're right.
I think you're just unhappy and
Of course, Colt. Who will be happy to leave your mother? So you don't understand it and you should to be the mediator, Mommy.
I can't mediate.
You can't because you are a pussy. You are afraid.
So there's a number of different requests in there. One is please be a mediator, an effective mediator. Okay. Please don't be afraid to stand up to your mom or even to me. That's what she's also, I don't know if she's saying, don't be afraid to stand up to your mom or me I think I've heard other people say, I don't know about Larissa, but I've seen other people say this where they're actually saying, I don't want you to be afraid of me. It actually is bothersome to me that you seem to be afraid of me, which bothers me. I need contact. And so I wonder if that's what she's saying. She's definitely saying, I want you to stand up to your mom. And those are fine requests. And she's starting to de-escalate. She's starting to perhaps communicate that. Let's see where they go from here. I could really see it going a number of different ways. Let's see what happens.
I call Colt pussy because in my point of view, he has no voice. He say, oh, I'll be sending my mother, don't matter what she say. He doesn't analyze situations.
Okay, as usual, when they're being interviewed away from the conflict, they're much more differentiated. So she's saying that he is afraid and he doesn't know how to analyze the situation. And I'm just taking a guess about what's been happening away from the camera, which is that they have been talking about Debbie moving out again since last season. So what was that, like a year ago prior to this moment? And she hasn't moved out yet. And so, and again, I want to remind everyone, they all three agreed that the mom was going to move out, right? Now, who knows what the real intention was. But anyway, the point is that I'm guessing that Larissa and Colt will occasionally kind of talk about that topic. And Colt will be overwhelmed with his fears, according to Larissa, and then everything will become derailed. And that's probably a fair assessment of him. Now, how do you ask someone to not be afraid? It's a very touchy conversation to have. You can't yell at someone and say, don't be afraid. You know, it's sort of like someone's about to bungee jump and they're like, I don't want to do it. And you're like, don't be afraid. What's wrong with you? Just get over it. It'll work maybe like 5% of the time, but for the most part, all you're doing is you're making the person even more afraid because now they're afraid of you and now their amygdala is activated even more. And so the tactic is frequent, but I don't know how effective it is. Now, maybe for Colt, he's like, okay, you know what? I think I'm hearing her. And I think I need to hear the request through the trees, and I think I need to respond to that. Let's see what he says.
I want a family. I want someone to love me. I want to love somebody. I'm sorry it's not perfect. I'm sorry I have my mother here.
Shut up. You are not sorry. You will try to turn the situation against me.
This is our life right now. And you knew I was coming here.
No. Let's say the truth. You will say, I can live with my mother. I want to live alone with my wife. Before we got married, Colt promised me that live with Debbie will be temporary.
All right, so there's been a number of statements that Larissa has said along these lines where he has promised prior to her coming up that he had a lot of money, that Debbie would move out, that he would buy her a lot of things. And I think, is that it? Something along those lines. And Colt has said that he didn't promise her those things. So I don't know what the truth is. Or if there's somewhere in between, or there's a third reality. If that's true, yeah, that's pretty shady to promise someone something and then to do a switcheroo once they get into the States, particularly because they are in some respects kind of trapped, kind of. And so that's pretty shady. But we don't know. I wasn't there, and I don't know. Maybe Colt will confirm what she just said. Maybe he'll say, yeah, I did promise you that, and I'm sorry. Let's see what he says. Hey, deserving listeners, as you know, I'm constantly recommending that people go to therapy. We all need therapy from time to time. One of the options available that is definitely worth checking out is BetterHelp.com. So if you're looking for a therapist, I would give it a try by going to BetterHelp.com/Kirk. Make sure you use the /Kirk because you get 10% off your first month, and it helps us out. I get a lot of emails from you saying that you're looking for a therapist. As you watch these videos, I know many of you have been motivated to find your own therapist, but I know it can be really hard to find a good one to work with. Like I said, one of the options available to try is BetterHelp.com/Kirk. And you should know that this service is available to clients worldwide, which is amazing. I've been told that you can start communicating with your therapist in under 24 hours. You can message with your counselor anytime. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. And I've been told that it's often less expensive than in-person therapy. So go to BetterHelp.com/Kirk to get 10% off your first month of therapy today.
But now I feel that we're never going to have our own place because the Colt is 100% dependent of Debbie.
I'm sorry that I don't have more money.
Colt, I'm sorry, but you are controlled.
I'm not
And
controlled.
you'll be really controlled, and you'll never grow up, you never be a man.
So again, we're just in the insult realm and not in the request realm. I don't think from what we're watching here that Colt is receiving the request that I think Larissa is trying to get across. He doesn't say much, so it's hard to know what's going on. And by the way, people sometimes comment like, how come you comment so much on Larissa and not very much on Colt? Because Colt doesn't provide me much. Now, y'all might have watched fully ahead and you know what happens. I don't. And I don't want to know because I want to react authentically. Colt doesn't say much. He doesn't do much. Larissa does a lot, so it's much more telling. And it's kind of reflective of couples therapy. When a couple sits down on my couch and one person is a lot more talkative, I get a much clearer picture of who they are much sooner than I do the other person. There are some couples that I've worked with in the past who I didn't know one of the members very well until literally 5 years into therapy. Some people are so walled up that I can take guesses as I observe they're walled up. I'm like, there's a wall there, but I don't know what's on the other side of the wall. I can speculate. When people like Larissa are very outward with their feelings, you know how Larissa is feeling, it gives me a much better opportunity to get an idea of who she is and what's going on for her and possibly what her traumas are. So, I get it when people are watching and they might want me to comment on both people. And believe me, I'm trying. But with Larissa, it's just easier to hypothesize because she gives us more material. Now, this is also reflective of couples therapy in that a lot of times, not a lot, but occasionally what will happen is a couple will come in for a few weeks. This is usually in the beginning of therapy. And one person seems to present more material, and then I'll focus on that one person, or I'll have the two of us focus on that one person. And then at the end of the session, I'll ask, how do you think that went? And then one person, the person who was focused on, will say, well, I kind of feel like we were focused on me. Like how come you weren't focusing on him? And that's a natural feeling, but it kind of misses the point of therapy. Therapy isn't supposed to blast people. Therapy isn't about me blasting each person equally. Like, okay, I'm going to blast you now. We're going to blame you for all these problems. And, wait, I'm going to get to you next and we're going to blast you. No, I'm helping both people. That's my job, is to not blast either one of them and really to stop the blasting and start the helping. And so when I'm focusing on one person, I'm actually trying to help that person. That's my job. Now, whether or not someone interprets it that way or whether or not it comes across that way, whether or not I navigate that well enough so that they understand that, whether or not biases are coming up for me and causing me to actually blast people when I think I'm helping it, but I'm not actually helping, that's another matter. But in the beginning weeks of therapy, That's often a concern. Is like, how come we talked about me for 45 minutes and you only talked about him for 5 minutes? 6 months in, 6 years in, couples don't think about that anymore. We'll spend a month on one person in couples therapy because it just kind of goes there for that month. And the other, we might talk about the husband's issues for an entire month every week. And the other husband, let's, not always do heterosexual relationships. The other husband, he's not involved at all. And he's only involved occasionally. I might go to the other husband and say, we're talking a lot here. What do you think? The other husband might say like, well, I'm just really learning a lot and I really feel bad for them. And, I'm glad that you're working on these issues and we can all have empathy. And then, okay, we go back to the first husband and we're really working on his issues. Because I've had a track record with people where people trust me that if I'm focusing on one person for 4 weeks, it's not because I'm blasting them. It's not because I'm blaming them. It's not because I think somehow they're more than 50% of the problem. That's not a question I ask myself. When I look at Colt and Larissa, I'm not trying to figure out who is more of the problem. That is not a helpful way to look at things in any situation. It's not helpful for Larissa and Colt to figure out who's more to blame for our conflict. That's what the rest of the world does, by the way. The rest of the world, when you look at a situation like this, and novice therapists will do this. I did this when I was a novice therapist. Who's to blame? What? It doesn't matter. Even that question will start a bad road in your mind that will lead to bad things. It doesn't matter. Both people can fix the problem. So who cares how you got there? And honestly, usually they're both equally to blame. But really, another way to look at it is they're both trying really, really hard. They're doing their best. They're trying their best, and things go wrong. Very few people wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to ruin my marriage on purpose. Everyone is in their little world trying to react the best they can to what is happening to them. And what I try to do is expand that world to understand more things, understand other people, understand systemic processes, understand their traumatic triggers, understand the hurt and pain, transforming into anger, transforming into hostility, transforming into triggering, causing hurt, causing anger, causing hostility, causing trigger. I'm trying to expand that out a little bit such that we don't need to think about who's to blame. All we need to think about is how can I help the situation? So when I watch this, that's what I see. Now, another topic that I want to get to is, and this applies to every video I've ever made on any topic. This is called Psychology in Seattle. And let's focus on psychology here for a second. Psychology encompasses a wide range of topics: trauma, abuse, domestic violence, murder, psychopathy, conflict, parenting, attachment loss, divorce, sexual abuse, everything. It includes everything. And so when we are in communication with each other, there is an almost undoubted moment where you are going to be triggered from your own traumas. We've all been traumatized. When I watch this show, I am frequently a little traumatized by it. It's not easy to watch. I'm a professional that helps people fight. Helps people who are fighting. This fight actually is pretty average for me. I've worked with people who fight much worse than this. But it's never easy. I'm a human being. In the same way that a first responder getting to the scene of a car accident, it doesn't, even though they've been to 1,000 accidents, it doesn't get any easier on the 1,001st time. In some ways, it gets harder as you go on. Anyway, the point is that there's a lot of opportunity for triggering. Some of you out there have had someone like Larissa in your life, and when you see her, it triggers that. Some of you had someone like Colt in your past, maybe 10 Colts in your past. Maybe your dad was like Colt. And so those different traumas, some of you may have had someone like Debbie. Some of you may have had kids like, we're all coming from a different history and a different story. Believe me, I hear these stories, and it's my job to hear these stories. And everyone has a story. Everyone has a unique, interesting, wonderful, tragic story. Everyone does. And we all can do good by ourselves, and I can do good by you by highlighting that, to take care of yourself. When I say take care of yourself at the end of the video, maybe I should also say we've watched some difficult things today. And I do sometimes, take a deep breath. I'll just kind of feel all that tension. And so when we're watching these two, I don't know, that they are more likely to trigger us than if we were watching, what's another couple that I watched? I'm trying to think of maybe Nicole and Azan. I'm guessing they don't trigger as much, but I'm guessing there are people out there that are very much triggered by something about their story. That's one of the reasons why we watch reality TV, is because it gives us a chance, I think, to grieve our past. When we watch this show, we're yelling at this, or I don't know about everyone, but people yell at the television screen. And what we're doing is we're trying to heal from our past injuries. That's my conceptualization of reality TV. I hate to both ruin reality TV. I don't want to do that, obviously, but I also want to make conscious, I think, what is happening for a lot of people. A lot of us have had a Colt in our life, in our history, and we didn't get a chance to yell at him. We didn't get a chance to judge him. We didn't get a chance to fight back. We didn't get a chance to out him. We didn't get a chance to reveal his true self to the rest of the world. And so we can all take care of ourselves and take care of each other, and I can take care of you in this way by highlighting that. We can take a deep breath and say, okay, how am I feeling right now? Is this too much for me right now? This, for some, every video I've ever made, reaction video particularly, there's someone out there watching that should have and may have stopped it and said, oh, I just can't, I'm losing it. I notice in my body I'm actually becoming nauseous, or I'm feeling that tightness in my lungs or my shoulders, or I'm starting to yell, or my fingernails are being dug into the palms of my hand. And there's both a responsibility that we all have to pull away, but also a potential healing activity, intention that we can do by pausing it, taking a deep breath, thinking about reminding yourself that you're safe right now, because you're just watching a show. This is happening to someone else. It's not happening to you in this moment, hopefully. And you can remind yourself of that, do some grounding. And then maybe return and say, okay, I'm working out some demons here. I've had a Larissa in my life like this. I've had a Colt in my life. I've had a Debbie in my life. And I'm not going to see this straight. And I'm going to have some emotions, but I'm going to use it to heal myself. Now, you should always work with a therapist when you do this kind of stuff, particularly if you've been traumatized and this is significant for you. So there's that, as I always say. But with your therapist, maybe as you watch this, you can actually use it to grieve, to feel feelings that you deserved to feel back then. You're feeling with these people because, it's good to get it out. It's good to release that. It's good to talk online with people and to get support, because in that way we can be like, Colt's crazy, right? And then someone says, yeah, Colt's crazy. And in a sense, we're getting support for our Colt in our past, because no one was there when we were with our Colt in our past. No one was there, but a lot of people are there watching this Colt. And so we can turn to our internet neighbor and say, right, crazy, right? Totally insane. And yeah, insane. And be like, okay, I'm not crazy. I wasn't wrong to feel wronged by my Colt in my past. And what a wonderful opportunity we have with these shows and with these reaction videos, really. But I'm not there, and you have to go to your therapist for that. But you can take care of yourself in the moment as you're watching these by noticing your emotions. And some of us were denied the opportunity to know our emotions. And so me even just pointing that out might be years of therapy to even answer that question. As I watch this show, how do I feel? That's a complicated question. For some of us, we were raised well enough that we can answer that question pretty quick. It takes a second to kind of take inventory. For some people, I've worked with people who, after 7 years, 10 years of therapy, they're only kind of aware of their emotional state because they were denied attunement needs when they were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. That's when you develop that sense of your emotional center. It can be healed. It takes a long time. I don't know if you hear my dog barking. I'm guessing that a package just arrived at my front door. That's usually what it is. I can actually tell by how long he's barking. By the way, we got a new puppy, and if you can go to Instagram and our Facebook page. There's nothing more soothing, right, than having a puppy or looking at pictures of puppies. In fact, here's a tip. If these reaction videos ever cause beyond a threshold that is recommended of distress, you're on YouTube, so just do the search bar and search by puppies. I did it I don't know, about an hour ago. I did it because I was actually trying to distract my puppy. I was wondering it because the puppy was whining about something, and I thought maybe if I showed other puppies to my puppy that my puppy would be distracted, and then she just fell asleep. on my. I wonder if I actually have a picture of it on my phone. I'm just rambling now. That's my puppy falling asleep on me. Anyway, so in summary, when I say take care of yourself, it means throughout of all time, particularly while you're watching these videos, know all those thoughts that I just said. And let me know what you think in the comments. So let's get back to the show.
The only person that tries to control me is you, darling.
Okay. I can't talk to pussy. Bye.
Larissa is freaking out right now, and I'm worried because she's behaving the way that she was before she was arrested. And I don't want anything bad to happen again. I have no idea how to make Larissa happy. I tried everything.
All right, so it's a little worrisome in the way that he's saying this. And I never know if they're editing it for sensational effects or what, but the way that he's wording it seems to intimate that if she doesn't shape up, he's going to call the police and make a false report and get her deported and really harm her in that way. It seems to be an implied thing that he's saying. I don't know. But if that's the case, that's not good. What am I looking for? What I'm looking for from him is to say something like, I understand why my wife is upset. I hear her saying that she wants me to be a man, and honestly, that hurts my feelings, but I think I understand what she's saying, and I get it. And so I'm going to tell her I understand what she's saying to me. She's in another country. She's not without her, she's without her kids. She's without her support system. And I love her, and I want to bridge that gap. That's what I'm looking for. Let's see what happens.
Just when I thought things were getting better, they got worse.
All right. Well, that's the end of that segment and that episode of Psychology in Seattle. I think this was a long one because I yammered for so long. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I am genuinely interested, as always. I have always done this podcast for over 12 years because I want to make a difference in the world, and I don't want to just, make content and have it just go out there. I'm always interested in well, how do people hear this? As a professor, and particularly as a therapist, I never just throw stuff out there. It's always a dialogue. It's always I'm going to throw this out there, but I don't know how it's going to be received. I don't know how I'm coming across. I'm just one brain. I'm just one human, and I don't know everything. How does this go for you? And then the other person says something back, and then I adjust what I'm saying, and then I listen, and it mulls around, and I say something, and it's a back and forth. And so a lot of what I was saying today actually is a part of that back and forth with y'all who are commenting as I make the content, and then I get comments. And by the way, another detail here is I tend to do these in batches. It's easier for me because instead of doing like Colt and Larissa for, a month where I do one reaction, where I record one reaction video every like 4 days, which I've actually done in the past. It's a lot easier for me to do them all at the same time and then post them sort of spread out over time. Because if I do it spread out, if I record them spread out, then I forget what happened and I end up repeating myself. So I think it's better content if I sort of tear through them very quickly, relatively quickly, like I'll do a whole season of Colt and Larissa in the span of a week or something, so I can keep it all in my mind. So part of the problem with that, a big problem with that, is that if I'm off somehow that season with that couple, I won't be able to adjust for it because I've already recorded all the episodes for that season. So this season is in response to all the comments from last season. I hope that makes sense. And thank y'all for all the supportive things that everyone has said. That's the majority of things, and it's really nice. It really is the wind beneath my wings. I wouldn't do it without that. I've been making content for over 12 years, and I'm here to tell you that pretty much every day, my mood about this podcast depends on comments. And I don't know what to think of that. On one hand, it's just like, well, how come you don't have more self-esteem? But I've talked to a lot of other content providers, and they have a very similar attitude. And some people are broken by comments to the point where they stop making content. There's actually a lot of YouTubers who I used to watch who just stopped making content because of how horrible the comment section was. So it gets to people, you know. The other thing is I've seen people do is they just turn themselves off to the comments. They don't read the comments because they're just like, I can't read the comments because I just can't. It's just too much. Even though like 9 out of 10 things are positive, the 1 out of 10 negative thing, it's just like, it just ruins my day. It just puts me in a horrible mood. It makes me not want to do the content anymore. And I can kind of relate to that. I'm a human being, and I have just as much insecurity as anyone else does. I mean, really. It's, why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying it because if you have something nice to say, it's great when I hear it. I very much appreciate it. It is very much appreciated. I guess it'd be a nice world to live in where we didn't have to have that and we could just be confident on our own. But I don't think humans are like that. So to model vulnerability and non-toxic masculinity, I will say that I depend on you to justify my existence. Why not? I mean, it's going a little far, but it's in that direction. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.